Good evening. This is another, essentially a video about freedom. Um, a video about why we should fight for freedom. What is freedom? What is freedom truly? That's the things we have to identify. We have to understand. You know, what is freedom? And freedom is not attachment to a materialistic capitalist society. It's not attachment to the past. Um, you see a lot of people saying, especially now, we need to get back to normal. We need to get back to pre-COVID times where, we could go to the movies and go to the shops and we didn't have to wear masks and we didn't have the vaccine mandates. Um, and people think that that is what being free is about. Being free is not about being consumed by our possessions. It's not about all the distractions of the modern world. I mean, that's what they are, the distractions. Distracting us from our true purpose, from what we are here to achieve. Um, I think finding that purpose is very important. I think each person taking responsibility as well in their own lives to actively seek that purpose out and carry it out to its fulfillment. I mean, whether that purpose is raising a child or whether that purpose is, um, whether that purpose is a particular career path or skill that you want to achieve or something or to, something that you can do to better the world for humanity or at least better, the world in your own personal life, in your own personal sphere for the people around you. But yeah, freedom. Most people don't know what freedom is because we're born into slavery. We're born into the system. We're born and then we are gradually, as we grow, as we go to school, we're gradually indoctrinated into this slave mentality. It's we're completely socially conditioned. It's this constant process through every stage of our personal development or our mental development of this social conditioning to be dependent um, upon the system, to depend on authority, which is exactly what we should not be doing. I mean, we should depend on no authority, um, save for our own personal authority, our own personal sovereignty. So yeah, I mean, I think right now what we need to be fighting for is true freedom, true liberty, liberty from the oppression of our current, oligarchical system. Freedom from, the thrall of the elite. Freedom from our corrupt governments and freedom from our corrupt um, institutions. And I don't think necessarily it is about focusing on trying to dismantle or destroy these systems. Because, I mean, what you have is, I think I've said it before, and I think I talked about it earlier tonight, even just with my own parents, that, this system that we have now, they're decades ahead of us, and they've been, well established for thousands of years. That system that we have is a very ancient system of control. And, they're decades ahead of us. Anybody in the sort of so-called freedom movements or anybody who sort of wants a freer um, world, who's sort of pushing for liberty, talking about liberty, well, we've got, no real concept or no real idea of how we can achieve that. And we keep on trying to work within the system, trying to dismantle it, trying to make the people who are oppressing us make changes. Rather than being the change, and taking control and taking a stand, which is realistically what we need to do. We've done bits and pieces and we've made some maybe minor headway, maybe with the protests, maybe whatever. I like what the Canadian trucker convoys achieved. And I think what that should be able to demonstrate to us in our country here, so in Australia, is that what we should be doing. I mean, we should be creating blockades. We should be creating, barriers to, why not stop trade? Why not block some major trade routes? Shut down some, things that are major, major economic boons to our government. The people, show them how much they rely on us and seize back in that way some of the power that they've taken from us, or rather, the power that we've allowed them to take from us. Essentially, the power that, they haven't taken anything from us, we relinquished it. And that needs to be understood by people. We need to take responsibility for the fact that we've allowed the powers that be to strip us of our own personal liberties, our own personal freedoms. I mean, the fact that somebody can come and tell me how much tax I've got to pay, how much, what licenses I need to make this or that decision in my life. That should show us that we've relinquished some of our personal liberties, personal freedoms of choice to them. I mean, I know it's a minor thing in the grand scheme, or it seems to be, but let's just take a driver's license for an example. You've got somebody telling you need to pay them money and prove to them that you have one of their plastic cards to show that you're allowed to drive on their roads. Public roads, to be honest. Built by public. Built by the people. Built by the workers. And then already you pay them taxes for those roads. Apparently for the privilege to use a public space, a space that exists in nature. So I have to give them money. I have to get their permission to be able to travel on those public roads in a car. It's backwards and it doesn't make sense. There's nothing that card, that license is not magic. It doesn't give me the ability to drive. It doesn't make me a safer driver. It has no real benefit, and whether they took it from me or not, and that's how they control the way that we drive, or the way that we decide to do things, is we're punished prior to committing a crime. So just for example, if we're driving on a road that they've decided to put a sign on that says 100 kilometers, and I decide that based on the traffic conditions and the other vehicles on the road, and it's very quiet, well, I decide that no, well, I can safely travel at 120, 130 even. That seems like a safe speed to me. I'm quite in control. There's nothing, there's no reason behind why I shouldn't travel faster than what they've recommended or told me I should travel. But of course, if I get caught, but you're not really doing anything wrong. It's not that you're getting caught. Who are you getting caught by? Well, you're getting caught by appointed law enforcement who really have no other qualification than they were able to pass a very basic basic exam and relatively, in the grand scheme of things, a really rather basic physical examination and test. There's no real like being a cop. Um, let's be honest, in the grand scheme of things, anybody could do that job. There's nothing complex about it. I'm sorry if that offends some police officers out there who have done their training. I'm not saying that anyone could do, say, a detective's job or at the higher ranks. I'm saying in general for general police officer, if you did the exercise and you kept up on top of your fitness. Other than that, basic, some fairly basic, maybe English mathematics, anybody could do that job had they trained hard enough for it. So, I mean, it's not a specialized job. It's nothing. There's nothing complex about being law enforcement. Then they just slap a badge and give them a gun. And there's no real, I don't know, they don't feel that there's any real vetting of the character of the person. One thing they do want in law enforcement is compliant sheep. I hate the term sheep or hate calling people sheep, but if it fits, if the shoe fits, if they fit that mold, then fair enough. So they want compliant people, obviously. They want these law-abiding, and half of them aren't. I've known police officers who were drug smugglers. I've known police officers who were completely corrupt. You're taking bribes and doing favors for people and using their power, using and abusing their power to get things they want. Blackmail, things like that. So, this is our law enforcement. That's not all of them, but there are people within the ranks. So it's not that being in law enforcement, being a police officer, I mean, that does not make you a good, honest person. So why should I listen to them as well? So why should we have to obey the laws that they just enforce? They don't make the laws, though. They don't question them, but they should. And we have seen during the COVID pandemic, we have seen police officers actually begin to question the rules. Some of them to the point where they gave up their positions, um, which should tell you something. Should tell you that even people within their own ranks can see that there is some horrible corruption, and they're not okay with that. Well, I mean, what I'm really getting at with the freedom movement and fighting for freedom, we have to live as free people. We have to live as free individuals. If we want liberty, we have to be the embodiment of liberty. If we can't just be, we can't just keep falling into the she'll be right culture of Australia, where we just decide, we say, oh, she'll be right. Um, don't worry, it'll all blow over. We can't keep falling into that. We are a lazy culture. Australians are, vaguely lazy people. Unless something impacts them directly, they won't do anything about it. Um, and yeah, so we've sort of let all this criminal activity happen around us. We've done very little about it. We've got these protests in Canberra now, and I think they actually are making to a point some form of impact. And that was very noble of the people to say, like, we're going to travel interstate, we're going to gather there and make our stand, make our statement. It's not enough as far as things go, and I want to reiterate that we can't just look at freedom as returning back to the world as it was pre-COVID, because what we should be striving for is better than We should never strive to sustain the way things were, but improve. And by improve, I don't mean technological advancement or, I mean really look for ways to live more in harmony with that which is natural, because that which is natural is permanent and right and good. You know, that which falls in line with natural law is right action, moral action. Like I say in some other videos, some other sort of talks that I've been through, is the law of freedom always says that as morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. And what we do see, is that when we sacrifice our moral virtues in favor of immoral actions for personal gains, we effectually, what are we doing? We're signing the pact with the devil. You know, in loose terms, we're signing pacts with demons. We are making pacts with something that is unnatural and not good, something that goes against freedom. So what we have to do is try to, in our own lives, live more morally. We have to realize that morality is an objective thing. It is a thing in of itself, and it doesn't depend on who is observing it. It doesn't depend on who a person's perception. Morality is not a matter of perception. It's not perceptual. It is not subjective. It is an objective reality. It is a truth. That which is moral is true. That's something to think about, and it can be hard for people. And we have to understand too that in our own lives we have this individual morality, which may just impact us, and then there is a greater sort of collective morality, which is that which affects, the greater populace. So, and we have to think about that because it is important. I've got a message off my partner. She's away. Sorry, that's rude, but you know, first time sort of my partner's been away since we've been together. Um, so 2 years, and yeah, we've never actually spent a night away from each other, so we spend a lot of time together, and I'm used to having her here with me. Um, I love her to pieces, so yeah, it's nice to hear from her. Um, yeah, so I guess I just wanted people to think about that, to think about their actions, to think about our moral actions. So the more we live in accordance with natural law, the more we live in accordance to that which is true and right and good and moral. If we're able to identify those, you know, identify what is moral and what is immoral, not just in our own lives, but collectively, we can really see some changes in the world, changes coming. But so long as we live immorally, and we have to really, really get to thinking about what that means. Because understanding what is immoral, then we can understand what we should be avoiding. And I mean, the basics of it were written down even just in the Bible. I'm not religious, but you look at the things like the Ten Commandments. I mean, these are basic moral virtues. You have that, um, thou shalt not murder, or thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, those sorts of things. Covetousness, it's these basic things. And that only lists a few really, but I mean, the basics of it is, theft is wrong. So theft of life, theft of property, theft of free will, um, theft of property. So you have, this basic tenet: not to steal, not to take life, not to take property, not to take someone's sort of freedoms. Don't take their freedoms away from them. I mean, and that's what slavery is. It's laying claim to somebody's earthly possessions, to laying claim to the fruits of their labor. I mean, is essentially slavery. And that's not what freedom is. So, we have to realize that if that is the attitude taken by our governments, if our governments seek to take from us that which is not theirs and give us back that which is not theirs to give because it wasn't theirs to take in the first place, then we have to realize that what we live in is a morally corrupt society run by a morally corrupt government. And, once the people en masse are able to realize that we really live in a society run by a morally corrupt government, um, and by morally corrupt institutions, well, then we can really make the changes and not allow them to run things anymore, because it is what we condone. It is us allowing them to run things in their corrupt way, in their morally bankrupt manner, that has us in the situation we're in, where, immorality continues to increase and so freedom declines. Um, it's big stuff. It's a big ask for people to take responsibility for themselves. I mean, it shouldn't be, but it is. I think because nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions. No one really wants to take responsibility for their own lives. And I think most people, so it seems, need that sort of, not just guidance, but direction and dictation, from governments and institutions and authority. They respond to authority, and they need it because we're taught to rely on it so much. We rely on our parents' authority when we're young, and because they're indoctrinated into the same, um, faulty system, the same flawed system, they've been indoctrinated, so they'll teach us very young in the way that they've been, um, indoctrinated to teach. So then the vicious cycle starts again. Then we go to preschool and school and high school. So then we spend the next, from birth till when we're at least 18. And yet that first 18, the developmental years of our lives, boy, go down, are spent being indoctrinated, to respond in a positive way towards authority. In other words, the positive way I'm talking about is actually very negative, because we're asked to respond positively to authority, and we're punished when we respond negatively. When we question authority, when we question what we're being told, when we ask too many questions, we're always told to shut up, or we're told to, just do as we're told. I mean, that is a teaching from very young, and it either goes two ways. People completely rebel against it and get themselves into world trouble, or they completely comply with it. They learn to comply with it. Through this processes, it's behavioral psychology. It is behavioral modification where if we don't do what we're told, we're punished. If you and the punishments are really not that bad when you think about it. And I never found them that bad. So detentions and things like that, that I got in school, they never taught me anything because I was already mentally in a way beyond that. Because to me, well, what, you're going to make me sit in a room? I can't go outside. I'm either just going to say no, I'm not going to go, or if I do go, I'm just going to muck up. I mean, that's how it went for me. That's how it goes for some people. But other people, they get terrified. Not detention though. No, I can't socialize with my friends. They're going to take that away from me. They're threatening to take something away from you. Your free time, and it's usually time. You notice that the punishment for a crime, or punishment for not obeying authority, is usually the threat of time, of taking time from you. Because we're also taught alongside that learning to obey authority, we're also taught that we have a limited time. Not on the laptop. We're also taught that we have a limited time on the planet. That teaching, that limited teaching that when we're born and we die, and when we die, that's it. I mean, that's what science tells us. There's no teaching through our schooling about reincarnation. We don't teach karma, so karmic laws not talked about. So we're leaving out these very important aspects of reality and aspects of life are left out of our teaching. So teaching us that this is the only life we get. You got to make it count, and to obey authority. And authority says if you don't do the right thing, we'll take time from you. And every time they take a chunk of time, it's less time you have to live. So in a way, it's that fear of death that keeps us obeying authority. That fear of not having enough time to do the things we want. Because even when it's just a fine, if we say speed, you get a speeding fine, you have to pay. The panic isn't, originally we conceive it as a panic about the money. Oh no, mate, but what is money? I mean, we get money for our time and effort. But it's mostly our time that we're being paid for. We're being paid for the time we're working. How much time it takes us to make X amount of dollars. And if a chunk of that gets taken off us, that's time, more time. So we're constantly spending our time. Anyway, I think you can see where I'm going with that. And when we start to realize that time is just a human construct that has no real bearing on reality, that reality continues on eternally, infinitely, for eons and eons, ages and ages, without any real beginning or end to it that we can see or comprehend. And when we realize that we are eternal beings and eternal souls, and this is why they don't teach this stuff, because once you realize that you are an eternal being with no real end, well, what? You're not going to worry about how much time you have to spend here and this and that and the other, because you know that when the curtain calls, when you sleep and transition into that next phase, that you're not going to die, you aren't going to lose time, you become one again with the infinite, to be either reborn as another human or perhaps as some other entity. Or perhaps you'll take on a whole new existence altogether with all the experience you've gathered along the way. constantly creating our bodies. And that understanding, I'll go into that into the next video, because I'm going to end this one here. Constantly creating as we go, then you're free. That is true freedom. The freedom to know that, to experience and enjoy and not worry, not fear, don't panic. Because you have time infinitely. And you have lived 1,000 lives, and we will live 1,000 more. Do not fear. Be free. Feel freedom. At the depth of your soul, you are free. No matter what they do to you, no matter what they throw at us, you are free. Express yourselves. Fight for freedom. Say no to authority. Keep on fighting. Keep on loving. Keep on trying to be better, to do better, and seek for better. Follow your purpose. That's my message. Anyway, much love. Hopefully this video wasn't too long and boring. I'm sorry for that bit in the middle there. But, gotta be the loving boyfriend. Anyway, take care, guys. Have a good night.